Well, we are back at it again. Another episode of the UCSS and the Cleveland Browns. Mikey McNuggets is in an undisclosed location. Earl the Pearl is back in the building. And G. Bush is with you guys. We had a crazy, another terrible game with DTR to him. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. And we talked about it on the show a little bit today. QB in round one. We see what they got. We see what they're working with. We see it's not going to get it done. But first, guys, let's dive into it. DTR, Earl, is I think the experiment is over for a lot of people, including us. I wouldn't be mad if we saw Bailey Zappi and a couple of other people at quarterback. There's one more game. But, are you kind of disappointed in what you've seen from DTR so far?
I don't know if I would classify it as disappointed. I think I'm clarifying. I think that's the better way of putting it for me. We all needed clarity on what DTR was or was not, and I think we found out, in real time that DTR is not somebody that's a legit NFL quarterback. It wouldn't surprise me that if DTR didn't make this team next year, even as the third string quarterback. Reality of the situation is, before these prior two starts, the knock was he was never really given the opportunity to have a full week of prep and go out there and show what he can do. Well, he's had that for the last two games, and the Browns offense has generated 9 points. And 14 career starts, my man only got one career pass and touchdown. And I get it. He has not been put in the best situation, and circumstances always seem, not the best when he enters the game. But if you're a baller, you're a baller, right? And this is the NFL, and you was drafted, so you should be able to like put some points up on the board. He was not able to do that. So any thoughts or plans about DTR being a part of a plan has been pushed to the wayside. But I don't think anybody never really had realistic expectations of him being a part of said plan anyway.
Yeah, Earl, man, it's kind of wild because, he was drafted in the fifth round. And for some reason, we were told all off season that this was going to be a DTR plan and that DTR had played better than, Snoop Huntley. He had actually outplayed Jameis Winston. And this is the second year in a row that there was high hopes for DTR. But the crazy thing, McNuggets, is as I'm sitting here watching this, it's wild because I don't see any of it. I don't see the pocket presence. I don't see the awareness. I don't see, the accuracy to just complete regular passes. And he looks like he's just scared, like skittish in the pocket, no matter what's going on, whether it's time, whether he has some people in his face. It's just crazy the fact that he at this point in his 10 starts, I haven't seen anything that would tell me he's a starting quarterback. What did you see in the game? And do you think, there's a chance that Bailey Zappi could play the last game of the year against the Ravens?
The Browns have to lose the last game of the season to secure a top 3 pick, so I'm starting DTR. I don't know what Bailey Zappi is, but I know he can't be worse than DTR, and if you're trying to ensure that top 3 pick, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And by that, it's reverse psychology because DTR is completely broken, and we can't fix it to ensure that top 3 draft pick. I'm sitting in the Newark airport right now, G, and I can look around to my left and right, and I think I could find, 320 people that might be able to give you the exact same production at quarterback as DTR has through the last 2 games. And these are just regular Joes trying to fly home for New Year's, fly back to Cleveland like me. I don't know where they're headed, but it was an abomination yesterday. I mean, we tried to dissect it. There was nothing to dissect. It was horrible. Sometimes when you see it, you see it. And with Daniel Jones, with Johnny Manziel, you go through all the quarterbacks across the NFL, guys that just didn't have it. DTR just doesn't have it. We don't have to try and sell ourselves. We've now seen it in a game. We saw it last season. Fluky, whatever, no preparation. He had 2 weeks as the full-time starter here, guys. And they scored 9 total points. They couldn't put a scoring drive together against the Miami Dolphins. Not 1 touchdown drive against Miami. 0. I've seen it all. I need to see no more. I'm out on the DTR declaration. The experiment's over, and I think he may go down as one of the worst athletes to ever have a 3-letter cool nickname. And it's a shame because those guys, you want to be cool. DTR, G, like you came up with it last year, and it has just been the complete opposite of what you would hope for from a guy who apparently won training camp. So we talked about how training camp reports mean nothing to us after how good we heard Deshaun looked in camp. I'm just going to not believe anything I hear about the Browns until they actually step on the field, because what we heard in training camp versus what the reality was could not have been more different realities this season.
Yeah, I think we kind of get excited because we've talked ourselves into so many quarterbacks And, right now we talked about it on UCSS. It's been all about hope. We've been hoping that we find something. After Deshaun Watson came in and played the way he did, Jameis Winston gave us a little hope, right? He threw for 400 yards, and he was throwing up touchdowns, and Jerry Jeudy looked like a regular receiver. So we had that level of hope. Then he came back down to earth after throwing those interceptions. We go to DTR to see what we got in DTR, and then you get here. And you realize that DTR is not an NFL quarterback. And what's staring you right in front of your face is the fact that now you have a top 3 pick. You go back and look, and we talked about this yesterday on the postgame show. It looks like the Cleveland Browns now have a top 3 pick. And that pick could potentially be Travis Hunter. That pick could be Cam Ward, and that could be Shedeur Sanders. Earl, I'll throw it to you. In general, do you, with the way the quarterback situation has turned out, you've seen everybody that we've seen, is the best avenue to make sure that Myles Garrett feels like you're trying to win is to go after a young, exciting quarterback that the fan base can get behind?
I don't know if that's going to convince Myles Garrett that you're trying to win or not, but I do think it might be the best avenue for this football team. Just look at the quarterback room as it's currently constructed, right? Deshaun Watson will be on the Browns roster next year, but due to injuries, I don't believe he will be a part of the on-field football plans, right? I don't think DTR will be back next year. I don't think Jameis Winston will be back next year. So in reality, you're starting with a blank canvas, so to speak, at quarterback. When you look at the salary cap situation, yeah, it'll cost some money to get in here and sign you a veteran. But why not get you a quarterback on a rookie deal that you can groom, that you can work with? And, so be it if he don't end up being a franchise guy. You know what? Draft another one next year until you get it right. But you can't go into this upcoming season with the expectation of I'm going to sign a veteran quarterback, and then that's going to be the only QB that I add to this roster. I think you need to draft you one, and I think you need to sign you one in free agency.
In a best case scenario, the rookie quarterback route's always the best option, right? But you can't overpay or overreach for a rookie quarterback if the price is too high. Like if the Browns end up with the 3rd pick and the 2 teams ahead of them are in line to draft a quarterback as well, I'm not trading next year's 1st round pick to move up just to try and get one of those 2. I understand the idea. But in any of these conversations, whether it's Cleveland, whether it's another team, the rookie quarterback route is always the best route. It's also the riskiest. But if you're trying to convince Myles Garrett that this team has a future, I think you have a hard time selling him that a guy like Kirk Cousins, who led the NFL in interceptions this year and is also coming off a torn Achilles, or a guy like Justin Fields, who has more potential than he has production throughout the first 4 seasons of his NFL career, or a guy, Malik Willis, I've seen floating around now. I think you have a better chance of convincing Myles this guy could be special, and by this guy I mean Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, even with the risks they bring, than trying to convince him that a 3rd or 4th retread quarterback is going to be the difference maker in changing this franchise from literally being in the basement to being back into playoff contention. It could happen. We see it happen every year, but I think your better chance of selling long-term hope is with one of those 2 young quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think more of in terms of a long-term answer is going after the quarterback. But I also think that when you look at it, they're going to be forced by the fan base. The fan base is going to want a splash. You're seeing a lot of people saying, hey, if you got a chance for Shedeur Sanders, you got a chance for Cam Ward, how many times are you going to pass on one of them? And you got to think about it also in terms of what do you do? What's happening and what do you do in the case that you pass on one of those guys and they become a star or they become a quarterback? We talked about this before. They passed on Deshaun Watson the first time. They seem to pass on the availability of getting Baker Mayfield. Do you believe that even if they're not the best, I would say the best quarterback class that we've seen in general, do you think that there could be a guy in this class that could turn into something where if they do, the Browns might regret not taking him?
It's always a possibility. I mean, there's certainly, you look at the last 10 years, Ryan Russillo did this study a couple weeks ago. Of all the quarterbacks drafted in the 1st round, there was like a 45% hit rate, meaning the guy turned out to get a 2nd contract and be good. Sam Darnold before this year was not on that list. He's obviously transitioned into the being good list. but it was about a 45% hit rate, G. That means likelihood that either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders turns out to be a really good player. You're probably going to get one of them, not both. The question is, do you trust Andrew Berry to delineate which one of those is going to be the hit and which one's going to be the miss? And if you say you have confidence in Andrew Berry to make the proper decision on that, I'm going to call you a fool. So, I think there is a chance that one of those two could hit. They certainly have the talent. Shedeur comes from the prime Sanders family. He has not the craziest arm, and his measurables aren't elite, but really smart, throws a catchable pass. Cam Ward has the crazy arm, the athleticism you want, but he seems to play with such leisure in the pocket that I'm not sure that translates to the NFL. I'm not going to tell you I've scouted these two fully in depth yet, but that's kind of my initial take on both. But the track record of the last decade says one of those two will be a really good quarterback. The question is which one, and the second question is, do you trust Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, and this front office to evaluate which one of those two is going to hit and which one's going to end up out of the league in a few years? I personally don't.
Earl?
You're on mute, Earl.
Not us three. It's not our job. But I think like when those draft experts come out and say, well, this is a weak class and this, that, and the third, like you can see some of the comments in the chat right here, right now. It turns everybody into this, for lack of a better term, know-it-all draft expert, right? Like none of us really know how these quarterbacks are going to grade out in the NFL. And none of us truly know what their true ceiling is. If you just think of that last year's draft, for example, how Bo Nix was not a top 5 pick. And outside of Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix has had the best rookie season of all the quarterbacks that was taken in the first round. You can go back to years past when the Panthers drafted Jimmy Clausen at the top of the first round out of Notre Dame, and everybody thought they'd hit then. The very next year, they was at the top of the first round, and they drafted Cam Newton. It's a crapshoot, and I think it's part player, it's part coaching. And if you could pair the right quarterback with the right coach to maximize that guy's potential, then he might be the right fit for you in said system. We don't know that, and that's not our job to know that. That's up to the talent evaluators to be able to figure that out. The problem is, like Mike just said, we can't really say that we trust the people that oversee and evaluate talent for the Cleveland Browns, and so it makes it hard to make that decision.
Yeah, it makes it difficult because when you look at it, we've seen this a little bit before. We've seen the fact that the Browns haven't seemed to pick the right guys, and especially even when we watched the game last night. We were told DTR was the best chance that they had to win. They even tried to trade Jameis Winston, according to some of our insiders that we have on UCSS. So if you're swinging and missing on that, what makes me feel like this is going to be a great opportunity that you're going to identify the right guy and then coach them up the right way. I look at the Browns as a team that have to fill so many holes. Like it's just not the quarterback. You could take a look at the roster and say we might need a defensive end, we might need a left tackle, we might need a bunch of different things.
No, ain't no Mike. We need it. We need it.
And there's guys available that could fill those holes in the first few rounds, especially. And we say like this: the transcendent player in this draft is Travis Hunter. And if you don't like one of the quarterbacks, it'll be a shame. It'll be a travesty, no pun intended, to not go after one of the best playmakers that we've seen in quite some time. It's two birds with one stone. You get a playmaker, you get a possible return guy, you also get a defender in the corner opposite of Denzel Ward. It just makes too much sense if he's there on the board, and it's too difficult to run away from that. So all things being equal, I do think that there's an opportunity to get a quarterback in the second round. Would you be, if you're not sold on the first round guy, McNuggets?
Wait, G, hold on.
The second or third?
G, hold on. Before I answer that question, if you look at the draft order now, and it could change, but just for the sake of right now, New England's at 1, Tennessee 2, Cleveland 3. New England's not going to draft a quarterback. They love Drake May. He's had a really impressive rookie season, which means one of the two quarterbacks in theory could fall to 3. Or if a team falls in love with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, they could trade up to 1. And if Travis Hunter's the pick at 3, how do you think the Browns fans and people who support this team would feel about the Browns having a top 3 pick, there being 2 potential franchise-changing quarterbacks at the top of the draft? We know a 5th, 6th rounder, that could hit, but we're talking about the 2 main guys. Do you feel like the Browns fans would look at Travis Hunter as a consolation prize Would they be excited about the pick, or would they be disappointed they missed out on one of the quarterbacks?
Listen, I think people will be super excited about Travis Hunter. Super.
They better be.
I mean, to me, if you get him, I mean, you come away with what most will believe is the best player in the draft. And you know, to me, if you can get that guy, it's about putting him in a position. And now people talking about, oh, he weighs this amount of pounds. He's small. He's slight. Listen, that's what the league is for. He'll train. He'll put some weight on, but his playmaking skills is not to be questioned. It is what it is.
Who talking about this week? Who talking about this week?
you know, our chat is alive and well. You know, the chat stable.
Man, you got to ignore that though, bro. That's BS, man. Devontae Smith won the Heisman Trophy at like 122 pounds. What are we really talking about? Devontae Smith has been a very successful wide receiver since he's been in the NFL, man. Like, again, watch football. Stop with the measurements and just listen to everybody else. Trust what your eyes tell you. The dude is an absolute baller. If you come away with the best overall player in this draft at number 3, that's a dub. You just got to make sure that you can utilize him properly, right? We've talked about this team lacks playmakers. This team lacks bona fide weapons. This dude is a bona fide playmaker on both sides of the football. What more do you want?
You can't ask for more. You just simply can't. You know, I take a look at it also in the second round, third round. I've slightly talked myself into going down a rabbit hole of, say, for instance, you do get a Travis Hunter. If you got a guy like Jackson Dart on the board, a guy like Jalen Milroe on the board at the top of round 2, I mean, I can't be mad at that. Can you be mad at that? Like, no. if they get one in, you could get a quarterback that you can develop?
Gee, at this point, the Cleveland Browns, every single year, I'm not exaggerating, every single year should draft a quarterback until they find a guy they like. Every single year. I'm not saying with your first pick, but at some point in the draft, and no pun intended, if you take Jackson Dart this year, you still got to throw a dart on the dartboard next year and see if you can find it until you actually get it. You go back to the RG3 draft. The Redskins at the time took RG3 in the first round, Kirk Cousins in the 4th round. Who ended up being the better quarterback? Now, RG3 obviously got hurt. Injuries derailed his career. But Kirk Cousins is still playing and might be the Cleveland Browns quarterback next season, and he's ended up having the better career. Why did Washington do that? A, because you can never guarantee success even on a highly drafted quarterback. And B, if your backup turns out to have value, you can trade him for usually better value in a year or two, or you have a valuable backup quarterback. The Browns have no luxury to not attempt to find a quarterback at some point in this draft. And if it's a Jackson Dart, a Jalen Milroe, a Curtis Rourke, whoever it is, in the 2026 draft next year, quarterback's still at the top of the priority list unless one of these guys turns into the bona fide, unquestioned quarterback of the future. I don't know how you could think about not drafting a quarterback year after year until you find the guy.
Treat it like Carolina did, basically, is what Mike said, because I agree with that. Listen, if the Browns walked away this draft, right, hypothetically, your first 3 picks of this draft was Travis Hunter, Jalen Milroe, and Jack Sawyer. Browns fans is going to go crazy. They're going to think that the Cleveland Browns walked away as winners from this current NFL draft, and they're going to be sold on that faith and hope again. So
I like that. Listen, you see the smile on my face?
See what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? And guess what?
I can imagine that.
Hypothetically, you draft Jalen Milroe in the 2nd round, and he gets an opportunity, and we can see right away that he's not the dude, then guess what? You draft another one next year. I am totally aligned with that. But watch, if a scenario like that played out, Browns fans will be doing victory laps. Watch.
We would be talking about how we fleeced everybody, and the Andrew Berry eyes will be back out if he's still with the team. Is there anybody? There's people that talked about it. Is there anybody? I wouldn't mind the defensive end from Penn State. I wouldn't mind
Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter. Is there anybody that you do not want, or you do not want a certain position within the first with the first overall pick that we may have?
If the Browns, you go first. So you go first. No, you're up.
I ain't gonna say there's nobody that I don't want. I mean, if you look at the players outside of the quarterback position, you got 2 studs that's tackles. You got 2 studs in there that's pass rushers, and then you got 2 studs in there that's playmakers at the wide receiver position. So quarterback aside, there is talent that you can add to your roster that will address an immediate need. It's hard for me to look at any of these dudes and saying, I don't want you when I know that you can add value to my team.
The way I see it, G, I like Mason Graham. I know he's a defensive tackle, but if they have the third pick, and let's say they don't love a quarterback, let's say Travis Hunter goes 1 to New England, and they don't love a quarterback, I'm telling you, instead of forcing that pick, I'm A-okay with trading back a few picks and having still your pick of the litter, picking up some extra assets next year, because I don't think this is a one-player turnaround. Regardless of quarterback, receiver, defensive end, defensive tackle, offensive line, you need the ammo to replenish this roster. I just don't think it's as talented as we thought it was entering the season, and some guys are getting older and are going to not be on this team when the new core of this Browns franchise comes to age. So I'm not forcing a quarterback pick, but if I am stuck at 3 and Travis Hunter's on the board and the Browns go with Tet McMillan out of Arizona, see this hair? I'll be bald the next day. Let me just tell you that. I will be bald. I'll shave it all. He's the one guy at 7, 8, fine. At 3, I'll lose my mind.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you. I wouldn't want to. If Travis Hunter is there, if the receiver is there, I got a problem. I don't want a lineman. I don't. I'm not gonna lie to you. I can't come out of this draft with a right or left tackle.
You're talking offensive lineman. What about
offensive lineman?
So you're okay if they went Carter or Graham, but not Banks or Campbell?
No.
Yeah, I'm cool with Campbell or Banks too. That's just me personally, because I feel like Campbell or Banks can step in and instantly solidify a position for the next 5 to 6 years. That's just me though.
I look at Joe Thomas and best case scenario, he's Joe Thomas. They ain't got a quarterback, they're dead. Like it's kind of messed up. We talked about it with Myles Garrett today. The man has 14 sacks. The only player in league history that has 14 sacks 3 years in a row. Look at the record that we have during those time periods, right? Including this 3 and whatever it's going to be. I look at it like this. I want some impact players. I get that you got, DeJuan Jones coming back. I get the fact that you can't really trust him. Conklin is getting older, but I think I could go fill another position of need way better or more, I guess, pressing than to draft a tackle. To me, if you drafted a tackle, I would feel like you was copping out. I would be like, you just did, like, you were afraid to take a swing. And I think that if you're going to not take the quarterback, give me Genty then. Like, if you ain't going to take the quarterback, give me Genty, and I'll roll with that.
At
no,
3?
yeah, no chance. No chance.
I'm talking about the event that you trade back.
Oh, okay.
If you trade back and you trade and say, okay, we ain't got what we need to get, let's trade back.
I wouldn't mind taking him in
the 10 to 12 range.
Okay, so let's hypothetically, right? Let's say the plan is to draft Arch Manning in 2026, where you got to have a line that's going to protect him, right? So to me, it's like I would still take, because, man, Kevin Stefanski said this at the end of last draft, and I think it was Tyvis actually who asked him the question about why they went the route they went as far as drafting guys, offensive linemen and defensive linemen. And Kevin Stefanski said football is won and lost in the trenches. And if you can control the game at the line of scrimmage, more often than not, you can control the outcome of the game. The Browns have been horrible at the line of scrimmage all year long.
Yeah, I'll give you that. They're getting
you draft that running back. You draft that running back. The run game coordinator ain't no good. The run game ain't no good. If the line ain't no good, he's not gonna look no good running behind him. That's how I see it.
We did the Ashton Genty topic the other day. I think the running back's the last piece of the offense. It can't be the first piece.
Yeah.
And you look at the Giants with Saquon Barkley, and I think that's like the perfect example. Saquon was fine in the Giants, but the Giants sucked on offense because they had nothing around Saquon. You add Saquon to the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, and he's 104, 105 yards away from breaking the all-time single-season rushing record. Gee, I know we got to run in a sec, but I want to throw one last thing at you guys real quick. If the Browns stay at 3 and the Patriots take Travis Hunter first, I feel like Andrew Berry and this front office are going to talk themselves into a quarterback, whether or not they believe he's worthy of that pick, because it'll, in theory, buy them 2 or 3 extra years on their contract. They can then use we have a rookie quarterback. What'd you really use excuse? The Giants can do the exact same thing if they're at 4 with the GM on the hot seat. You draft the rookie quarterback. It, in theory, extends your shelf life. That is my biggest fear for the Browns. If they like one of those guys enough to draft at 3, so be it. Will we ever know if that's the reality? I don't know, but I have a terrible gut feeling that they're going to talk themselves into a quarterback that they don't truly believe in with the 3rd pick, just to end up extending their shelf life and keeping their job a little longer. That's my biggest fear.
Hey, Earl, I'll give you the last word on it.
I just hope that when we get to that point, whomever is making those decisions is able to make a sound decision. I'm not about to change up what I've been saying now. The Browns will finish the season with a top 3 pick. We even got the possibility, if it shakes out, to have the number 1 overall pick. We don't know how week 18 to play itself out, but I'm not comfortable with Andrew Berry and his staff evaluating and or making these draft selections. And quite frankly, I then became very uncomfortable with Kevin Stefanski and his staff coaching up whoever we do draft. So it's hard to really say who's good and who's not when you don't even believe the people that's running your organization is that good at identifying and evaluating talent anyway.
Well, it's going to be a great offseason for speculation, because we got a whole lot of weeks to talk about who to draft, what to do, move up, move down, trade up, trade out. We'll be doing that all right here. We will thank you, everybody. Thanks to our Bleacher Report audience. Thank you for watching us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And we will be back, same place, same time, coming up here next week to finish the season off. Peace.